Hey everybody, welcome back to Life Under Deborah's Palm, where first I should probably apologize for not being consistent with my videos. I had been on a weekly Monday schedule and I had shot a bunch out of ways, and then we had some issues this summer with an illness and a funeral and actually a few funerals, and it just kind of got away from me. And so let's just pick up where I left off. And I left off with the gifts of the Spirit as found in Corinthians. And so the last one was healing, and this one was supposed to be about miracles. It was a gift of miracles. If I really had thought about this ahead of time, I would have put miracles in with healings because miracles is kind of short. But I decided I'm going to run with this, and we're going to look at this from a little bit of a different angle. So, the gift of miracles. The definition of miracles is really probably what we would expect it to be, and I'm going to read some of this. It's the supernatural intervention by God that goes against natural order. Now, in the Old Testament, there's tons, actually throughout the whole scripture, there's just tons of miracles that take place. And I'm just going to hit on just a few to give you an example. Moses and Aaron and the Pharaoh, that whole story is loaded with miracles. I'm only going to point one out. And it says, it was the plague of darkness. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and total darkness covered all of Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. The Israelites did not live in Egypt. They lived in the land of Goshen. God made Egypt dark. Now, dark, like pitch black dark. Don't know how he did it. Could have really been a natural phenomenon. Sometimes it works that way. Things that just exist in the earth, he brings in and it makes everything pitch black. I really don't know. But notice it didn't happen in the land of Goshen where the Israelites lived. That may not really seem like a miracle, but truly it is. It defied natural order. In Exodus, when they're escaping Pharaoh, they part the Red Seas. Moses holds his hands up, they part, those seas part, and everybody goes through on dry ground. That's a miracle. Likewise, in another, I think it's Exodus 16, God shows up and feeds the Israelites manna. Every morning this stuff shows up on the ground and they eat. That's it. God feeds them. Does not go with the natural order of things. In 2 Kings, you'll see Elisha retrieving an axe head out of a river. Someone had lost it, and he said, "Get me a stick," threw the stick in the water, and the axe head floated. Axe heads don't float. We all know that they sink. Go into Daniel, you'll see the story of the 3 Hebrew boys who got thrown into the fiery furnace, and nothing happened to them. And of course, the infamous Daniel in the lion's den, nothing happened to him either. Those are just a few. And when we go into the New Testament, we'll see the same thing. We'll see Jesus feeding 5,000. We'll see Jesus walking on the water. We'll even see Peter start to walk on the water until he kind of gets scared and then he starts to sink. Jesus sends Peter to the shore to find a fish that has a coin in its mouth so they can pay both of their taxes, Peter and Jesus' taxes. We get to the book of John, we see Jesus turns water into wine, and we go into the book of Acts and we'll see that Paul gets bit by a viper. And even the people that are with Paul are sure he's going to drop dead at any second. But Paul just shook the thing off and went along his way. It did not cause any illness or any issue with him. Those are miracles. Now notice in that I did not include any type of healing. So if you have a gift of miracle, you have the gift to see the unbelievable, the things that will defy natural order. It'll take a gift of faith to make it operate, but that's kind of it. So I thought I'd take a peek at miracles versus healings and why they're not the same, although they kind of seem the same, and maybe sometimes they're the same. I don't know, but we are going to look at, of course, a concordance. So we're going to take a look at the biblical definitions of miracles and healings. I'm not going to hit every single word, there's no way, but we'll start in the Old Testament, the word, and I cannot pronounce Greek, I'm not a Greek scholar, I'll put the words up here somewhere so you can see how they're spelled. The word is, in the Old Testament, there's a couple words, mopit, which means wonder, sign, miracle, or portent, and pala or pala, which means to be wonderful or amazing. Now, they're talking about the same thing. Now, when we get to the New Testament, I'll hit on three words. One's dynamis, which means power, ability, miracle, extended by meaning of a person or supernatural being who has administrative power. When concordances say extended by meaning, what that means is another way of saying it. So another way of saying it is a power, ability, and a miracle. Is power, ability, miracle, but a person is used. So that's a gift of miracles. Another word is ergon, which means work, deed, activity, task, job. And the last one I'm going to hit on is Simeon, which means miraculous sign, signal, or mark. Miracle signs and wonders often get kind of lumped together when people talk about that. And signs, miraculous signs, are used to basically verify scripture. That's very often what they're used for. So let's jump into healing, and I'm going to skip the Old Testament healing stuff for the sake of time, and I'm just going to take a look at healing so you can hear what some of the healing is and how it's different from the miracles. So healing is what we think it is. It's physical healing. Now, I know that if somebody got a really bad diagnosis and it would end in death and there was nothing doctors could do, and suddenly someone prayed for them and they got healed, we would consider it a miraculous healing because it went against the natural law, what people expected to happen. It's one of them weirdo things, you get semantics involved in there. But we'll take a look at three words. The first word is therapeuo, which is where we get the word therapeutic from. Therapeuo means to serve, to help, to take care of another person, or to heal. Kind of different, right? It's healing through serving. Does that sound odd? Well, that's what doctors do. That's their job. They heal, but they heal through their means. So you go see a person, say you had strep throat, you go to the doctors, they give you penicillin, you get all better in a few days. You've been healed. But it's been done through using a person. Sozo is another Greek word that gets translated heal. It also means to rescue or to deliver, and again, by extension, or another way of saying it, is heal. But it's healing in a little bit different fashion. Very often if you ever hear somebody use the word sozo, they're talking about an inner healing. They're talking about the healing of the body, the soul, and the spirit. So maybe you had a very traumatic thing happen to you. Maybe you were abused in childhood, or whatever went on. You're bitter, you're unforgiving. Things like that can create issues, physical issues in your body, and you can go look that up online. They know for a fact that those things can create physical issues. So when you get healed of those things or delivered, you can get a healing, a little bit different. And the last word I'm going to look at is iome, and that just means to be healed or to be freed. And I thought I would read this to you, and you can see how it's a little bit different. Although English uses just one word, we use some form of healed, heal, healing, whatever. But the Greek really spells it out a little bit differently when you read it. And this is the story out of Luke chapter 8. I'm going to read 42 through 48. And I will tell you this. The woman in this story is going to have what's called an issue of blood. I'm sure they had no idea exactly what that was in those days. But today, more than likely, it's probably a fibroid tumor in the uterus that they couldn't treat in those days. today we go to the doctors, we get Therapuo, and we get treated if that happens to be your issue. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to read the Greek translation as well. So it says, as Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal or Therapuo her, meaning a doctor could not heal her. She had already been, and nobody could help her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. Who touched me? Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me. Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Iomi, which just means to be healed. So she was healed immediately. Then he said to her, daughter, your faith has sozoed, delivered you. Go in peace. Jesus didn't call it a miracle, he called it a healing, even though we would think that was miraculous because no one could help her. But Jesus did not call that a miracle. So miracles and healings are different. Those giftings are different. Although I truly think they just run together. It's just my opinion, and I can't really prove that. I think they do. I think the way we think of those things runs together. That's why sometimes you really need to look at things in the Greek. And when you first start out, just read and get familiar with the stories. But, studying the words can be very helpful to really understanding and get a better in-depth idea of what's really going on in the stories. So, I hope that helped, and have a blessed day.